Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Blunt Talk. I am your host, Krystle, and I am with the lovely and fierce Red and passionate. Can't forget passionate.
Hello.
And today is the first episode of our Urban Legends series. That's exciting.
That's very exciting.
I'm,
It's
I'm, I am
it's our
pumped.
passion.
It really is. I am like really pumped. It's been so long since I really dove deep into urban legends and whatnot, and so it feels really good to get back into it.
Yeah, me too. Same for me. When I was going back over, I'm like, oh, I forgot it completely about that. So I thought that was fun.
Same here,
It's because we're
and,
nerds.
and we have a good variety for you guys. Of course, our first general topic is USA urban legends, which is what you guys on Twitter voted on, which I was
Woohoo!
Which I was actually a bit surprised by, but I guess not because USA urban legends aren't really touched on.
I don't think they are.
Yeah.
Not enough, anyway.
Also,
Hey, Matt.
shout out to Manus and Matt in the chat. Thanks for joining, guys.
Juan's not here yet, apparently, and he was really stoked for this episode. So I can't believe he's not here yet.
And neither is Ginger. How dare.
What are we gonna do? We're gonna yell at them after this. That's what we're gonna do.
And yeah, we have a good variety of legends to tell you guys about. And before we officially get started, I just want to say it. I know you're right. You can tell me if this is wrong, but the trend I personally noticed, there's a lot of variety when it comes to U.S. urban legends, but I find that a lot of the ones, there are a lot that seem to be based on like people or like cases that are really unexplained, and
Yes.
so it sort of becomes a sort of supernatural explanation for it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I've noticed that sort of trend.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of urban
Oh no, did we lose Red?
legends people actually haven't heard about. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to kind of stray from, you know, the main ones because why hear the same shit all the time?
I agree, because I feel like there are a lot that there's a lot that people always bring up, and yet in a way it's almost like a superficial thing. Like I know you said that you were trying to look into Bloody Mary, and you couldn't really find anything on it.
No. I mean, I could, but they were the same, just the same stuff that everyone's always heard about, which I thought it made the research so boring because, like, I've already heard those stories 1,000 times. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And like you do with some other weird shit. And then this bitch appears in your mirror. It's like, we all know that story. It's boring.
mhm.
Juan's here. He can't talk because he's driving. And we do not condone texting while you're driving
We
here at Blunt Talk.
here at Blood Talk do not condone the act of texting and driving at the same time. So you're
So the
good,
next
Juan.
time, the next time you message Juan, you better specifically state, I am no longer driving or I will beat your ass. And yes,
Yeah,
that is a threat. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ginger, before he gets here.
but we here at Blood Talk do endorse threatening people to not commit crimes. And on that note, who should go first?
Oh, I don't care.
Why don't you go first?
All right. Well, since Juan is here, I guess we'll go over the wandering bus, also known as the bus to nowhere. Okay. So all of mine, before I even get started, all of mine will be Pennsylvania legends because I thought it was fascinating because I actually live here and I am relatively close to a lot of them, which is fun. But anyway, what this bus is, it apparently shows no street, no route, no destination whatsoever. In fact, it's not even shown on any known transportation maps, which I thought was fascinating. All of the passengers which ride this bus are said to suffer from hopelessness, depression, anxiety, and just they're just lost in life. And this bus does not just stop like a normal bus would. You apparently have to chase this bus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you actually have to chase this bus, and the driver gets a feel for your desperation of how badly you want to get on said bus to despair. And once the bus, I guess, senses how desperate you are, it will allow you to get on the bus. At which point, it's said that you can ride this bus from minutes to hours, anywhere from minutes, hours to actual years. Now, once again, people, this is legend. And once you're on it, when you pull a cord, supposedly you pull the cord when you're ready to get off. You apparently, at least some of them say, you have no memory of the ride. And when you pull this cord, there are people who claim that you get off where you're actually supposed to be in life. Whatever destination you're supposed to be at, that's where this bus will put you off. And supposedly it doesn't even belong to the city. It only answers to internal misery of people. So if you're sad and depressed in Philadelphia, which is where this bus originated from, then I guess you have to chase after a bus that won't just pull over for you, I guess. And also, it's interesting to note, they also claim that when people get onto this bus, there's no noise whatsoever. There's no conversation, no signs. And it even goes as far as to mention there's rarely even a fare that's requested by the driver. You just get on and sit down, which would be nice if that's how all buses operated, but it's not. Now, some say the passengers remember sitting in the seats in complete and utter despair. Others say they don't remember the ride, they just remember getting off the bus. Now, surrounding the bus, it's
Oh no, did we lose you again? The fair is your soul. If it ends up taking you to where you're meant to be in life, I guess then it doesn't take your soul? I don't know. This is an oddly positive urban legend. You still there, Red? Until we know if Red is back or not, I guess I'll just note that I've never heard of this urban legend until now, and it sounds quite fascinating. Though I do wonder if you don't remember.
Can you?
Oh, there
Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry. Where did I cut off at? It was my VPN again. I forgot to turn it off. I always do that shit.
You cut off at the point of talking about the bus having no fare.
Okay. So yeah, the bus doesn't even require a fare, which would be nice if that was how all buses operate, but it doesn't. Some say the passengers remember sitting in the seats in despair and just being so sad. Other stories say passengers don't actually remember the ride. They remember getting off the bus. And then there are two separate stories as far as what the destination of this bus is going to be. Some claim the bus eventually is going to just disappear and forever and take whoever is unfortunate enough to be on that bus with them. And they're just going to be gone. And then there's another story that says the bus eventually gets sick of people's shit and just they drop you off wherever your psychosis began, essentially.
Huh.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if the bus driver throws you out, if the bus driver puts some kind of weird curse in your brain and you're like, shit, I got to get off the bus. Like, I don't know how that part's supposed to work, but that's essentially what it is.
I have so many questions about this.
Right? Like, I would have loved to add more to it and go more in depth, but I know we were going to go back and forth. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I got into it with that.
This is such an oddly positive urban legend that I don't even know how to like respond because it's like I didn't hear about it until people mentioned it on Twitter, and I'm thinking like, oh, okay, so it's like this mysterious bus where you get on it and you think you're going to your destination, but really it's just an endless ride, or you disappear and you never return. And it's like you come on here and it's like, yeah, so like if you're depressed, you go onto this bus and then it takes you to where you're meant to be in life, and I'm just over here like, what?
If you're sad, if you find yourself really sad in the city of brotherly love, and you see a bus with no route, no destination, no street, no nothing, chase that shit. Get where you need to be and just be happy. Like, that's what you need to be. And you know what? Maybe if you're on that bus and it finally does disappear, maybe that's also where you're supposed to be. So, like, it's win-win. If you're sad, get happy, ride the fucking bus.
Well,
Like, that's what I say.
were you able to like find any like supposed experiences of this bus?
I didn't get into that. I just tried to with these ones. Because I figured if people wanted more in-depth, like actual cases of it, we could always research specific cases. But for this one, I just stuck to what the general statements and legends actually were supposedly. So unfortunately, I don't have any. But people are fucking liars, right? And they just love attention. So, I mean, I wouldn't really trust the person that said, hey, I drank a whole bottle of whiskey and I found myself on this bus and I was really sad. Like, I don't trust that shit.
Oh, just you wait, Red, because I looked into personal experiences for all of these urban legends. Well, okay, except for one, but almost all of these urban legends, and some of them are so clearly fake. Just you wait. But
see, that's why your teachers, when you would write, when you would do what is it?
essays.
When you would write essays, and your teacher would be like, "Krystle, you added too much. You added too much." Like, that's why.
Oh,
you went above and beyond again, and I'm left here like sitting here with my little dunce cap on. Fine. You know what? Fine. I'll wear a dunce cap. I don't give a shit.
Hey, no, you deserve some credit because you actually went out and got pictures.
I did of some of them. Yes, I did. Yeah.
So, before we move on, was there anything else with the Philadelphia bus ride? Or how about this? Do you think it's real or not?
No. I don't think that's real. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense.
All right.
I think it was just depressed people looking for a way to I don't know, explain their fucking tragic bus ride.
I guess almost a way to give people hope in a way, I guess, because sometimes people need hope.
Fine, you know what? This bus absolutely could exist, and if you're sad, chase it. Get on it, and then hit me up.
If you're completely
let me know.
fine, if you're completely fine and stable, this totally doesn't exist. But if you're depressed, it could.
Well, it is fascinating you say that, because supposedly people who are happy, do not actually see this bus.
Yeah.
So, that's where I call bullshit.
Yeah.
Because when they say, like, if you're depressed enough and you chase this bus, it'll let you on, right? So, like, if you're not depressed enough, then you shouldn't even fucking see the bus.
Yeah.
See? Look at me thinking and shit. All right, you could go. What's yours?
So for my first one, I'm going to tackle the one that gets me riled up because that is
Jesus.
No, I won't get too riled up, but I must admit I am slightly annoyed this urban legend started because it makes absolutely no sense. So let me introduce this. It is what year was it's 2013. And this Canadian woman, Elisa Lam, who is a student at a very well-known university in Canada. I'm blanking on the name right now. I think it might be the University in British Columbia. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, she's out traveling to California first solo trip, and I would say what the purpose of her trip was, but I'll get to that in a minute because that's a bit sketchy. So she's out in California, and she actively has a blog, and on that blog, she openly discusses her struggle with bipolar disorder and depression, either ADHD or depression. Now, what type of bipolar she had is unclear. That's never been disclosed, and her family never really talked about it. Most suspect that it was just a simple imbalance of emotions rather than. Most people think it was bipolar 2 rather than 1.
Okay, I think one's more severe, to be
Yeah,
honest.
1 is more severe.
Okay.
From what I remember, what Lucas told me, he can correct me if I'm wrong or not. And she was actively taking her medication. And for those who don't know, you are prescribed 3 different medications when you're on when you have bipolar. Antidepressant, something for the bipolar, and then antipsychotic. So that's what we're starting off with. She's at this hotel. And again, I'm blanking on the name. Let me see if I can find the name real quick. Hotel Cecile, which has a very sketch history. For example, a serial killer was found murdering people in one of the rooms.
I want to go there.
And there have been a lot of deaths in this hotel. It is supposedly haunted on top of it. They've tried rebranding and changing the name, but it just can't escape that. She's at this hotel, and everything's fine. She's staying there for a few days, and she has one of those rooms that's a shared room. So she shares it with another person. And for some odd reason, the person she's sharing a room with calls at the front desk and complains, "Hey, the person I'm sharing a room with is acting a bit strange and I'm uncomfortable." So they move her. So they move her to a solo room. After that, a few days later, she's supposed to check out, but she never does. And she has been consistent with calling her parents and talking to them every single day, and suddenly she stops. And the last person to see her was a owner of a small bookstore. So they try investigating to see where she is, and all they could find was this security footage that I will share.
Woohoo!
There we go. Can you guys see it?
I got it.
Or hold on, let me see if I can. Yeah, that would be good enough. I'll enlarge it, and I'll explain what's going on as it plays. And this is where we enter the urban legend. So this is security footage. This is the only security footage they ever released, or that's been ever talked about, and it's of her in the elevator. And she acts really bizarre in this elevator. She, as you watch, and Juan, if you're driving, I'll describe it. She basically, at the beginning, she basically is looking up and down the hall as if she's trying to avoid someone. She's standing in the corner trying to make herself smaller, as if she's trying to hide from someone. And as soon as she's into the elevator, she presses multiple buttons. And that people believed was her playing the elevator game. Now, I'll pause this. The elevator game, it actually originates from Korea, and it's supposedly if you press elevator button, you need to do this in at least a 10-story building. And if you press the buttons in a specific order, you'll be transported to another world, where you'll be the only one in it. And as you're doing this, at one point, a woman will enter the elevator, but she's not real, and you have to avoid looking at her. So when this was released, a lot of people suspected that she was playing the elevator game. And as the video continues playing, you'll see Elisa Lam talking to someone you don't see. So a lot of people suspected it was her playing the game. This is where I get a bit annoyed in this becoming an urban legend because at the beginning of the security footage, you see that she's pressing multiple buttons at once. She's not pressing buttons in a specific order. The elevator game, you have to press them in a specific order. So I don't even understand how this became a legend at all. And it's not stated either what floor she's on. So because say she were on the 10th floor and she was already in the other world and she was freaking out and pressing all the other buttons, we don't know what floor this was on. But here she's acting disoriented. She's again pressing all the buttons. She's acting weird. And I'll fast forward, and about this point you see her talking to someone, and we lost Red. And hopefully she'll return. But to continue describing this, she's really making weird hand gestures, and you don't see who she's talking to. There you are.
Yeah, sorry, I got really excited.
It's okay. So basically, I was just saying how she's talking to someone that you don't see. My logical argument for this is that she's talking to someone further down the hall. That would be my logical explanation for it. She could be talking to someone further down the hall. We don't know. Anyway, that's the security footage that sparked the urban legend. But here's where it gets weird. And
wait, do you mean that that's the security footage that kind of started the whole elevator game thing?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
This is what introduced the elevator game into America.
Okay.
Because the elevator game originated in Korea, but when this released in 2013 with the missing case of Elisa Lam, many people suspected she was playing the elevator game. Again, I don't understand why, because she's not pressing the buttons in order, but here we are. But her death is quite the mystery because, get this, she was, so she disappears, and while she's disappeared, and, the authorities get on the case to try and find her because, her family reports it. During all that, guests at the hotel start calling the front desk and complaining about the water supply. Weird water pressure, the water looking black before clearing up, the water tasting and smelling weird.
Ugh.
They call in a maintenance guy, and the maintenance guy goes to the roof with the water tanks. They open the lid, and they find Elisa Lam naked, dead in the water tank. Now,
they were drinking the water.
Now, I know. Now, here's where it gets sketch. So, I'll stop screen sharing. Here's where it gets sketch. So, Lucas recalls when he first heard about this case in 2013. He remembers hearing that she was in California for like a specific conference thing or some sort of meeting thing. Now, they say she was in California on vacation. Nothing about a conference. And they even go so far as to say as she wasn't even registered as an active student at the time. But at the beginning in 2013, they didn't say that. They said that she was a student and she was in town for a specific reason. And another thing that kind of has me curious, but I couldn't really find, is Lucas also remembers hearing that she had, like, she associated with pretty well-known people, at least in specific spheres of authority, like whether it be politics or whatnot. So, there's that. However,
deep state.
It's possible because this is really sketch. It's either, I believe, this is either a inside employee murder or it could have been deep state. We don't know. And here's why I think that. Because another thing too, she's You see in the security, you saw in the security footage, she was thin, she was small. She was 120 pounds, but she's still thin.
Right.
Right. And this all happened in February. And even though it's California, it still gets freaking cold at night. So you're telling me because her death was labeled accidental drowning and they blamed it on psychosis. However, if you're having a psychotic break, it doesn't really change the strength you have. And even male employees at this place have an awkward time maneuvering the water tank lid. So, you're telling me Elisa Lam, 120-pound little chick, she has a psychotic break. She goes out onto the fire escape, goes onto the roof where the water tanks are. She opens the lid. She gets in. She undresses and then closes. Oh wait, I guess supposedly they found the lid. I don't remember. There's conflicting claims of whether
Yeah,
or not
I
the
told
lid.
I told you that they actually found the clothes inside with her.
Yeah. So, and there's conflicting information on whether or not the lid was closed. But either way, whether she closed it on herself or not, you're telling me she did all of that at night when it's cold. Even with clothes on, it's probably cold.
Right.
That just does not sound right to me. And because they actually have the entire medical exam available online, and I checked it out, and I asked my mom about it because she's currently taking some free classes, but before she was interested in going into a medical field or something like that. And a lot they include the toxicology part, which is the substances they found within the blood, and they did find traces of her bipolar medication and her antidepressant medication. Everything else, though, there are only a couple things labeled as negative. Most of the stuff labeled on there is ND or non-detectable, which means that they just couldn't find it through the blood. It doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't there. They just couldn't find it through the blood.
But there's a ton of medication and stuff that could disappear within, like it would have to be tested in another way as opposed to blood, because it could disappear within a certain amount of time.
Exactly. But I'd have to look at again to double check. But from what I remember, there wasn't really any other tests that I saw. It was mostly just a blood test. And almost everything was non-detectable except for one or two negatives and a couple positives. So it's possible, one, if they would have done another test, they would have found her the psychotic antipsychotic medication tracing in her, or it's possible that the antipsychotic just, she could have taken it before her death and it just faded out quicker than everything else. But the point is that most things were not detectable. It wasn't a hard yes or no with some things. And I think one of them was the antipsychotic. It wasn't a hard yes or no.
Well, like I brought up to you too, if there's a switch in medication, even though she is still taking antipsychotics or whatever medication she's on, if you would change them, different kind of medication has different kind of side effects. And I know I'm playing devil's advocate again, I apologize, but like different ones, if you change them, she could have a reaction. But I think, like we talked about before, that doesn't account for the fact that her as a small woman was able to lift a lid, climb inside, take her fucking, like, I don't understand. You have to be crazy to crawl inside of a water tank and take your fucking clothes off. Like that. I got nothing. I got nothing.
However, what about this though? Why has no other security footage been talked about? Because they haven't ever found a suspect. And you're telling me the only security footage they were able to use was elevator security footage? There was nothing for the roofs. There was nothing for the halls. There was nothing.
Right. So you couldn't even see who she was talking to on the outside. Like if you want, Well,
Sorry,
if you want to go through, thank you. If you want to go through and say, if you believe in ghosts and supernatural stuff, like I think we both do, and there was a lot of tragedy in that hotel. Who the fuck was she talking to in the hallway? Was it a living human person? Was she, and bipolar, from what I remember, because I have someone close to me, and I'm not going to divulge that because it feels icky, but I have someone close to me that has it. And if I remember the disease correctly, it can cause hallucinations if it's severe enough, but that's usually if you're not on your medication and you're not taking it properly.
Yeah, you can enter mania, but
which creates that.
But you'd have to, as far as I know, you'd have to really go off the deep end for that. And until the last few days of her staying in this hotel, her behavior was perfectly fine. And even the last person to see her, even after her room changed, the last person to see her said that she was bubbly, she was positive. Like she didn't seem extremely like as someone having a bipolar episode would have a extreme high or whatnot. She didn't seem like that. She seemed like a normal, like bubbly, extroverted interaction.
And well, to be fair with bipolar, I mean that is kind of common. Yeah. You'll have moments of clarity and once again, I'm not trying to because I still find it very weird she was able to get inside and take her clothes off. Like I had a hard time with that. What was the point of taking her clothes off? It almost seems like someone had to have killed her. Because what's with the clothes? And I don't understand. I just don't understand. And how wasn't the lid closed after she was in it too?
That's where I hear conflicting things because I think it was closed when they found her. Lucas says that it was open and someone shut it. Which, that's another thing. You're telling me an employee would see the water tank open and not close it immediately? Wait, take it back.
Not look inside.
Not look inside, thank you. I don't know why.
You're welcome.
My brain got ahead of itself.
It's all right.
And also, madness, no illegal... Those were the two negatives on the toxicology. There was no alcohol and there was no illegal substances. Those were the two hard negatives. Everything else was non-detectable.
Well, I don't know how drugs work because I don't really, I'm not in that scene. But is it possible that they managed to, by the time they found her, is it possible that they managed to get out of her system? Because she was acting weird as shit on the fucking footage.
Yes and no. I lean more towards no because the body, I asked my mom, the body holds drugs holds substances differently after death because it doesn't get out. And they were able to find positive traces of bipolar medication. Lucas, who has been pretty open about his having to deal with bipolar, he says that the medication fades out within 3 days. And you have to basically start over if you miss it for that long. You have to start over. And she was in that water tank for 2 weeks, and they found traces of bipolar medication.
How's that possible? Unless, like you said, it's different because she was no longer alive. Maybe it goes through the body differently.
I mean, people are dead for how long, and they find traces of leftover food in their stomach.
Stop it.
So, but point is, they would have found if she was drugged or not, and that was negative. So, and again, everything else was undetectable. So, anyway, to wrap this up, I'm sorry I talked so long on this.
It's all right.
But to wrap it up, a lot of this is sketch. I think the elevator game is false. That's another thing with the elevator game. I think that whole game itself is false because when it comes to like numbers and whatnot, when it comes to the supernatural, numbers have to usually have like a specific meaning to them, and unless they have these numbers have a specific meaning in Korea, which I do not know. But it's like, as far as I know from my research and whatnot, like the number 2 doesn't really have any supernatural meaning to it. So,
not from my research. I've never come across the number 2 as having any significance whatsoever.
Yes. So I think the whole game is bunk. This specifically with the game is bunk, and I think there's something really suspect with her death. I don't think it was as simple as a accidental drowning because one, there's just a lot of information that is not matching up with her. Two, why were they never able to find a suspect? And why is this the only footage ever talked about? How is there no footage of the rooftop? How is there no footage of other hallways? That's all sketch. And
Mhm.
it's I think it was either an employee or if we really wanted to put on the tinfoil hat, if she really did have connections, if she really was there for something more than just a vacation, then it could possibly be deep state. We who knows?
We love deep state shit.
Of course we do. So there we go. Elisa Lam.
That's a fascinating case, that one. Oh, okay, my turn. This one is actually my favorite, and I actually sent you a picture of that one. The one I'm going over is Seven Gates of Hell.
Okay.
That's the one, and I did go there today with the kids. They were a little spooked out, so we kind of left relatively fast. So the Seven Gates of Hell, once again, this is another one in Pennsylvania because I specifically made a decision to only focus on the ones in my state. It is in York County, and there are two different versions of this. One says there was an insane asylum that burnt down, and the other one has something to do with an eccentric doctor. But both of these versions have seven gates. What the legend is, it says if anyone manages to go through all seven gates, they go right to hell. I don't know how, I don't know why, but that's what, yeah, that's it. But that's what the legend states. The institution was said to be located on either Toad Run Road or Trout Run Road. Now it gets a little murky here because there is no Toad Run Road. It's actually Trout Run Road. So people are using that to debunk the fact that this institution ever actually existed. But the one with the institution said that there was a fire in the 1900s, and firefighters, given the location of this actual asylum, they weren't able to reach it because it was a remote location. They weren't able to get their equipment there. However, that whole story went down. Now, most of the patients were killed in the fire. This is, as the legend goes, most of them were killed in said fire. There were also some that managed to escape, and they were beaten to death. Sorry, I had to. Both stories have the gates. I couldn't really find too much on why the eccentric doctor had the gates. I couldn't find too much on that. But the reason the gates supposedly were put up for the institution was to catch the patients who escape, which don't really make sense. Because if you look at the picture I took, supposedly that's the only gate that's able to be seen in the daytime, the first gate. And supposedly at night, some EBGB witch shit happens, and then magically you can see the other six. But if you look at that gate, I mean, I know they're crazy. I know they were in an insane asylum, but it's not really going to hold them in. So that's already confusing. The other one, both of them agreed essentially, like I said, the one gate, the first one is only visible during the day. And according to the legends, no one has made it past the fifth gate. Now, there are some stories I looked into with this one. So I did lie at the beginning. I did actually look into some stories with this one. They had said the reason that no one has made it through any more than 5 is apparently each gate you get past progressively, things start getting worse and worse. You will start hearing noises. You will start seeing things move through the woods. You will start hearing voices when there's nobody there. And you just get a sense of, I have to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And I did actually watch a video specifically aimed towards this, where some guys went and specifically looked for this. Now, what they found was, they said the gates were supposedly taken down. And the owner that now has this property and who lives there will shoot at you if you go on his property, which makes sense. I'm a gun owner and no one's allowed on my property. But personally, I think he's probably shooting in the air if these stories and things are true. He's probably shooting in the air saying, get the fuck off my property, you weird ass kids.
Yeah.
But then they specifically went to a diner. The guys that I watched who went there, they had video. So they did in fact go. And what they said, they stopped for coffee or something, and they talked to one of the locals. And the locals actually told them there was a hospital that was shut down, completely abandoned in a certain area, and you go explore it. I'm going to go find that one. But there were people saying that the institution didn't actually exist. This person that they visited, who has lived in York County, who grew up there, stated, yes, this was true. This happened. It burnt down. Like, this is reality. And some of them will argue this didn't actually happen because there is no Toad Road. Well, what this person said, who's lived there forever, he said the reason that is they changed the name of the road to try to get away from the legend and try to keep people away from that area because they didn't want trespassers, yada, yada, yada. Now, I don't know, but my whole thing is, say this did happen. Say this whole, like, get rid of the gates and you're going to hell. But say the institution actually existed, right? And they couldn't do anything with the inmates. I don't want to call them inmates, but they couldn't do anything with the patients who escaped that were dangerous. So they killed them. Why the hell wouldn't they get rid of any evidence and say, hey, it's never fucking existed? They beat these people to death. Like, you would think that this is a story they wouldn't really cover, because firefighters beat the living shit out of these people and killed them. So I would say that this one has a likelihood of actually being real, for the simple fact of the beatings supposedly that happened, and they killed people who escaped. I would say that is a legitimate reason to want to cover up this legend. I don't know about the gate specifically, but the actual institution, it probably did exist, and they're trying to cover it up with that way, because that's a horrific thing to do.
That kind of you describe how they're handling it and wanting to not say it wasn't real and whatnot, and like even changing the name of straight. That kind of reminds me of Portland with the Shanghai tunnels, because Lucas has taken me on the Shanghai tunnel tours twice, and basically, for those who don't know, the Shanghai tunnels in Portland are these underground tunnels that criminals and whatnot use for human trafficking, for Shanghaiing people. And it went so far as to places like one bar that's right above the tunnels has a trap door that people would use to Shanghai people. Like, that's how in depth this whole system was, and it went on for a while. But you go on, Lucas went on another tour, a Portland City tour, and someone had asked about the Shanghai tunnels in that tour, and the tour guide just went in on, like, that's not real. Those people are just trying to make money. It's fake. Don't listen. Like, they just in, like, trying to say none of it was real. So it reminds me of that.
Well, and there's another thing, like, I know I wanted to focus specifically on Pennsylvania, but there's another state. I want to say Illinois, but I could be wrong. It might be a different one. But there's also a 7 Gates of Hell in that other state, whichever one it is. It's Ohio or Illinois. I'm pretty sure. But that one, what that one says is the same thing. Like, if you go through gates 1 through 7, you go to hell. But this one's a little bit different because what this one says is if you go backwards from gate 7 to gate 1, you don't go to hell, but you get a vision of hell.
Oh, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, so that one actually sounds fascinating. See, I would like to go to that one and go through 7 to 1. Like, I don't want to go to hell, but it'd be kind of fascinating to see it. I don't know, I'm weird.
I mean,
I'm
we
curious.
I mean, that's fair. It's fair. It's fair.
Well, and the reason that they say this 7-gate thing kind of leads to hell is because of what happened to the inmates. And supposedly you start seeing the ones that were actually killed. You start seeing them running through the woods. You hear insane manic laughter, which, you know, they, I guess, like to make fun of crazy people. I don't know.
So
I don't think there's anything funny. But I will tell you, when we did go there, even in the day, which could be just because we know the legend surrounding it because we live in this area, me and my teen got really uneasy. Now, me and her were both really sensitive to these kind of things. So we just started feeling a whole lot of get the fuck out of there. And my little one's just like, we need to get a drone. Because I'm like, no, we can't. She's like, let's go look for these. I'm like, no. You're supposedly not able to see the other gates in daytime. She goes, we need to come back at night. And I'm like, no, this is no trespassing. She's like, so what we'll do is we'll get a drone and we'll fly it over there. And I'm like, no, it's still trespassing. You can't take a drone and fly it over someone's property. And then my teen is just like, well, if it was me, I would shoot it down. So that was a little bit of a fun story to go along with our little adventure there.
So, if anything, I'd say it's less of you go to hell or you see hell, and I'd say it's more so it's a very heavily haunted area, and more so you feel like you're in hell because you're basically witnessing and hearing all this pain that took place.
Well, for me, I think it's more the energy in that area because of what actually possibly happened there. Like it's just negative energy.
Yeah. Which, you know, if you are sensitive like you or me or like your teen, you know, you would hear like manic laughter, or you would see things out of the corner of your eye and whatnot. So if anything, if any of it is real, it's probably the fact that it's so heavily haunted and concentrated with negative energy.
See, that's what I think. I don't even think it has anything necessarily to do with these gates. I think it's just the further you get in, the closer you get to where everything actually happened, and you start, like I told you before, people get that sense of, I got to get the hell out of here. And I think that has more to do with it than the actual gates. I don't think you go to hell. I think it's just that became a legend because of what happened there and the fact of all that energy. Because I do believe, whether you believe in supernatural shit and ghosts and whatnot, there is energy that exists. And that place just has a whole lot of negative energy. It's like, fuck, man. I'm going to turn this car around, get the fuck out of here. And I even sent you that video of us driving down there. It turns into a rock type of road.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and my teen is just like, put the window up. I don't want anyone shooting at me. I'm like, dude, think a window is going to stop a bullet if this guy decides to shoot at us? I ain't gonna stop shit.
And to take it even further, the common idea of a ghost being a ghost is the people's spirits get trapped to the earth if they died a traumatic. Tragic, traumatic. So.
All right, we're already at 10:20, so we got to speed this up a little bit. I mean, I can go longer. I don't care.
I'm fine with going longer because.
All right, this is our forte.
I did a ton of research. Okay, so my next one Black-eyed children.
Yes.
Here we go. So, black-eyed children. There's a lot of theories behind what these, these entities are. But let's start with, the story of them. Black-eyed children. It's it's a thing of in the middle of the night or at night at some point in time. You will get a knock at your door, and it'll be two little kids, and they'll be knocking and they'll be asking if they can come in. They won't really respond to anything else. They'll just keep asking the same thing over and over again. Can we come in? Can we use your phone? Can we come in? They'll keep repeatedly asking it. And if you let them in, a lot of bad things will happen. If you don't let them in, you'll be pretty much fine, other than the fact that you just saw two kids with black eyes. But it's more of a danger if you let them in, because then bad luck will start happening. So, uh, and I'll go into the experiences in a moment, but I kind of want to. Oh, actually, no. I'll go into the experiences now before the theories. So I've heard a lot of supposed experiences on seeing these, and I will say the experiences I've heard of people encountering them sound more legit than the experiences I heard of people playing the quote unquote elevator game. But so the first the first uh, encounter I recall in my research is this elderly couple, this older woman was talking about how she saw those she saw two kids on her front door at night, and they were asking to come in to use their phone. Uh, she she and her husband let them in, and when she let them in, that's when she noticed that their eyes were completely black. Oh, and that's another thing. The kids are usually anywhere from like 8 to like preteen age.
So like
So
11 and 12.
yeah, really young. And there's conflicting information. Uh, some say that they'll appear in older clothes, while others will say well, others said they were in more modern clothes. So it's a bit iffy on how they appear.
I'm sorry, let's look at the chat a second. James said, me to those kids, heck off beds. Sorry. I'm sorry, that was funny. Okay, go.
Also, hey Hunter. So conflicting information on that, but if it's a supernatural entity, it's possible that they change their appearance. But they always come in pairs. But anyway, there's a older couple. Lets them in. Sees they have black eyes, and as soon as they enter, her husband starts feeling dizzy, and has to sit down. The kids ask for the bathroom. She leads them, and she checks on her husband, and he looks up, and he has a bloody nose. So she starts going to the bathroom to fetch him a tissue, and she sees the kids just standing there in the hall. And after that, the power goes out. After that, the kids say, "Our parents are here," and then they go. And but when they walk out, the woman, walks with them to the door. And as they walk out, she sees at the end of the driveway two men in suits. Now, this is where one of the theories comes in, but again, I'll touch on that in a minute. And there are these two men in suits, and she waves at them, but there's no response. They all, they leave, they disappear. She closes the door, and it takes half an hour for the power to come back. Um, so after this encounter, over the next few days, 3 of their cats go missing. And then on
Oof.
one day, their fourth cat, they return home, find it dead in a pool of its own blood. And then her husband goes to the doctor, and he gets diagnosed with a type of skin cancer that is specifically tied to tanning beds, something he's never stepped foot in. And she herself started getting dizzy spells and bloody noses and other things she wasn't comfortable disclosing. Another encounter I heard of was of a father with his two daughters, and the daughter said that she saw these two kids with black eyes outside the fenced off area at school during the day, and then at night the kids came to their house. And they were asking to come in. The father said no, and they left. And he called the cops. The kids ran off, and they were not found. And this is the most comical one. For me personally, this was the most comical one because the other encounter I heard of was like this Irish dude and encountering them. I don't think he let them in, but he encountered them. And at the end of his like sharing the experience, he's like, "Yeah, I think it was the Fae," and I'm just like, "Bruh."
You said Irish. He was probably drunk out of his mind.
And I just remember being like, "What do you mean you're blaming this on the Fae? The Fae aren't supposed to be evil. There's a difference between mischievous and evil. The Fae aren't evil. They're mischievous. There's a difference, dude."
I mean, I don't know. Some of it could be mischievous,
No.
but
the Fae would not bring bad luck.
I don't know too much about them, so I can't really say. You'd know more than me.
Sticking with the legends and whatnot, they would unseelie maybe, but this is not the description and the encounters of the black-eyed children, or some shorten it to Bex. The black-eyed children fits more of a description of demons, which is actually one of the theories.
I was going to say that because of the whole fact they have to let you in. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they have to ask permission for permission to come in, which was the first thing I thought when you said that.
Yes. So there are a plethora of theories tying with the black-eyed kids. One of them being demons, which I think dealing with the supernatural and whatnot, that for me is the most plausible one because they fit the criteria of demons. And I looked into this a bit and I talked about it with some people a bit. And here's the theory I heard about it being demons. The theory is that these are demons that demons or malevolent spirits of children that lost their innocence in some way. It's tied to the loss of innocence in some sort of way, and they specifically target people who have taken away childhood innocence. And that can range from anything from like someone being an abuser and that's why they encounter these, or because you know they don't entities don't go into the nitty gritty of like they don't go into the gray area, so they could be targeting someone that quote unquote took away childhood innocence, but it's really not at all like that would warrant a demonic visit. So it also comes down to if you're just unlucky enough to cross paths with them.
I think, but wouldn't it be more plausible that it doesn't necessarily have to do with that, but more, who are you going to allow into your house more? A kid who says like, "I'm cold, I need to call my mommy," or are you going to let some fucking burly ass lumberjack looking guy in your house? Like you're more, especially women, are more willing to let a kid like, "Oh, you miss your mommy? Come on in. Let me get you some juice." Like you're more willing to let a kid in than you are some big dude.
Yes, but typically if a demon is from the stories and the research I've done, demons that specifically use the appearance of a child to come in will usually say more than just repeating the same phrase over and over again. So, which is what lends people to say this is, because that's another thing too. Demons, there are demons that just will target anyone and everyone. However, there are also specific demons that have specific targets, like and they have specific rules they follow. Like for example, jinn from Arabic mythology, they have to be invited in. That's their rule. They have to be invited. So it is quite possible that black-eyed children are a demon that need to be that have a specific target of those who took away childhood innocence, which would make sense because I think I've heard of some that encountered these that ended up being child abusers.
Well, James just said the Irish believe in evil fae, so that could be why. Why the Irish guy thought that.
But the Irish also like to blame a lot of things on the Fae too, so. So, anyway, demon. That's the one theory with the black-eyed children. Some go the logical route and say that it's like it's either a birth defect or it is kids playing a prank. And another theory is that it ties to, yes, the Men in Black or Deep State, and that these kids are government experiments that they unleash onto the people.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
I already hate the state. You got to bring that shit in. Now they have demon kids.
Oh yeah, and as Manna said, some theories also go the vampire route because of the whole invite thing. I don't really go with the Men in Black one, only because one, what was I going to say? Well, one, like in the case of the older couple, seeing two men in suits, that could just be other demons for all we know. That could be something else. Because, again, there are lots of entities and there are lots of demonic entities that have that target specific things, and they usually make their appearance based off of that specific target, which is another reason why demons specifically targeting those that took away childhood innocence would appear as children, because that's their MO. So, for all we know, it could be that. Another thing too is I think the only basis for it being tied to Men in Black is the fact that they repeat the same thing over and over again, which I don't think really is enough to tie it as like a Men in Black thing, because there's how many things. Demons usually will, again, some demons will say a variety of things. Others will just do the same thing over and over and over again, like repeated knocks. You know, you've heard those stories where they'll repeat
three knocks to mock the Trinity. Yes.
Things like that, or they repeatedly do the same thing at the same time in the middle of the night to mess with people. So they have rules that they follow. So I'm leaning more towards demonic explanation for it, and I do believe that this can and is a real thing, because demons will go after anyone, man. And if you've done something shitty to get their attention, they're gonna fucking go for you, man. So that's black-eyed children.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn.
Yeah, unless you have anything you want to touch on with the black-eyed kids.
No, I mean, I just lean towards the demon theory, because if it's anything and it exists, it just makes more sense for it to be the demonic, because of the whole, can I come in? It's seeking permission, which is something we know if you're into supernatural. And I don't mean the show, but you should get into that show because the men are very hot on that show.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you're into the supernatural, you know demons cannot just do whatever they want. They have to seek permission to do it first. And I find it very fascinating that the kids are always like, can I come in? I'm cold. Please, I need to call my mother. Like, they're always seeking permission. From the stories I've heard and researched, they're always asking for permission first. If you don't give them permission, then it seems like the people in those situations are fine. But as soon as you give them permission, then that opens a door to allow them essentially to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
You've given them that permission, and they have free reign.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing too that kind of goes against the Men in Black theory is the fact that over time, the if you don't let them in, they will start getting angry and they'll start, being more aggressive. Whereas a lot of things dealing with the Men in Black, it's a lot of things being emotionless. So if these were a Men in Black thing, they would be more like a emotionless thing, like the Men in Black are theorized to be. Uh, and also to touch on what Hunter said, at some point in English history, the term fairy and demon would be used interchangeably. Historically, fae have been dark shit. Not if you go back to the more classic Celtic mythology folklore of fairies. Fairies or the fae are simply a entity or a part of the nature around. Sort of they're sort of a being uh, similar to Mother Nature, but on a much lower scale. There are, of course, not so good ones, but the idea of Fae being like this dark evil thing was more so later on in history, and especially after the Celtic mythology was sort of like ripped away and a lot of it got destroyed. So, at least from my research and understanding of the Fae.
You would know better than anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah.
You like those things.
I do.
I know. It's not in my next one, but it's in my one after that where there's fairies involved.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it doesn't get too in depth. I'm sorry.
Nah, that's fine. What's your next one? Since I finally finished up on it.
All right. Well, my next one is something called Cossart Road. Cossart. This is in southeastern Pennsylvania. It's also known as Devil's Road. And if you know anything about this specific area, it was also used in the film The Village. I've never specifically seen it, and I might have to after the research that I've done on this specific area. But apparently, further in the woods, there is said to be a massive abandoned mansion. Now, locals claim it was inhabited by an incestuous family by the name of DuPont. Apparently, they were apparently they were one of the richest families in America at the time. It's believed that they were so intent to keep the wealth in their family that they would marry their cousins and have. I am so proud this is in my state. But to be fair, it's on the border of Pennsylvania and Delaware, so I'm just going to attribute it to being a Delaware problem. But like I said, they were so intent in keeping the wealth that they would just marry their cousins and have children with their cousins to keep that wealth inside of the family. And it's also believed that they would get rid of, and I guess by get rid of, they mean kill, the deformed and sickly children that were born from those unions.
Because, oh my God!
Yeah. In case people haven't told you, having babies with your cousins is a big no. You shouldn't do it.
Like maybe if you don't want deformity, don't sleep with your cousin. Like maybe try that, dude.
Yeah, marry someone that's not in your family. You know, your family tree is, believe it or not, supposed to fork. But anyway, and the reason this specific wooded area was used in the film is they have trees. And I have to go to this area. Like I was telling you, I think the area is only an hour from me. Yeah. There are trees that supposedly bend almost to a 180-degree angle, so sideways, to get away from this house, which they would call it the mansion or the cult house, which would be the mansion. And the interesting thing to note with that is these trees actually bent away from the sun which science tells you that's a big anomaly. Trees do not do that. Trees, to grow, they need to get sunlight. Well, these trees are bending away from the house, essentially to get away from it. Right. And what they had said was, because there were rituals that happened in there, and I think they had said the KKK was involved at some point.
Oh.
I don't know. So all you people that are out there screaming about Nazis, might be the house that you want to go to. But they attribute it to some kind of dark magic, because it's not natural for trees to grow away from the sun. So I thought that was a fascinating one to add. Now, I didn't do anything more in depth with that, but that's essentially what they say. And I guess that's in Chad's Ford, Pennsylvania. I'm not familiar with the area. I'd have to do more research to be able to actually find it. I did look up the actual road earlier today, and the girls were really fascinated and they wanted to go, but I'm like, I have the podcast. We're gonna have to make that another day, and I'll make sure that when I do go, and I know the girls want to go, but when we finally do manage to get to that area, I'll make sure I take plenty of pictures and then upload them, because the whole trees bending away shit is fascinating, and the fact that it was in a movie, that's just gotta see it.
Yeah, that's really bizarre. Like that would be a case that would attract Unseelie or more dark fae. But that is.
You would think so, yeah. Because that's not normal shit.
No, that's.
Could you imagine though? Could you imagine you're just driving along, going down this road, and you're like, the fuck's wrong with these trees? And like, if you don't know, you're just like, whatever.
Yeah, because trees should not go. They would grow towards the sun. Like, have you ever seen a tree where the bottom branches are so buried underneath that
it's Tina! I'm sorry, I had to say that.
Because like from what I remember, like they grow, like they start bending upwards to try to get more sunlight because they're so covered from it.
Right. And so, Tina, by the way, since you're here, my next one will be where I'm going to do that shout out. Just thought you should know. Then you can exit if you'd like to. Anyway, Krystle, go ahead.
But no, that's all I had.
Oh, well then you can go to your next one.
Oh, well. Okay. Bell Witch.
Oh, shit.
It's inspired Blair Witch. So.
You mean the movie?
Yeah.
I never seen it.
If I remember correctly, because Lucas was the one that mentioned this to me, and I unfortunately didn't get as much research into it as I want to, so maybe we'll have to do a specific episode on it with him. Who knows? But because he knows more than I do. But Bell Witch. So this is a urban legend that is still ongoing today with the family, and this is the first time in U.S. history where someone's death was tied to the supernatural.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, like that's serious. So what happened was there was this family, the Bell family, and they were moving to. Ooh, let me see where they moved to again. Tennessee. It is now called Adams, Tennessee. It was by a different name at the time, but Adams, Tennessee. And the Bell family moved in, and another family was moving in with them. And they had a lot of conflict, these two families, because Bell basically screwed over the husband of the other family, and their name is why is so many names escaping me? But basically,
because you didn't prepare properly.
No, you're showing me all because you have like pictures and all these things, and I'm over here like This person fucked over that person, and who's the- oh, that's why I don't remember because I remember one source didn't even go into about that other family. There's that's one thing I found frustrating with researching the Bell Witch is that so much information was conflicting and you couldn't get a straight answer.
Yeah, well, of course, when you do that, it'll make it hard.
Yeah, bats. That was the other family. So the Bats family. Don Bell, the patriarch of the Bell family, screwed over the patriarch of the Bats family, and it was always suspected that the matriarch Kate Bats was into some sketch things, some sketch practices. And after this conflict, uh, in their new house, out on the farm, when Don Bell was checking everything in the slaves and see how the work was going, he encounters a strange animal that looked like a cross between a dog and a rabbit. It had the body of a dog, but it had the head of a rabbit. So the first thing he does is he shoots it. Well, tries to at least. um, he tries killing it and runs off. And from then on, strange things start occurring. Every night, they hear knocking at the door outside, and they think it's the Bats family messing with them. But anytime he and his sons would go out to check, they find nothing. Over time, this grows and grows and grows, and every night, as the kids try to sleep, they believe they hear rats crawling around. They hear knocking. They hear strange hymn sounds coming from outside, and eventually it escalates to the point of the youngest, Betsy, of her getting physically injured and physically assaulted. And even one night, she feels like she is held down in place in her bed. She sees no one, but she feels held down, and she gets slapped so hard and so many times across her face that welts form, and there's no explanation for it.
Oh my God.
Yes. Uh, however, John Bell does not want to talk to anyone about the situation, and it isn't until things get that bad that his wife finally convinced him to talk to their neighbor, their friend. Their neighbors come over.
Stupid dog.
Their neighbors come over, and all all night they're praying, and they hear all the sounds that they were talking about. And his friend says, "You need to tell the town about this. You need to talk to other people about it." So he does, and he gets the attention of, at the time, General Andrew Jackson.
Whoa.
Yeah, because he and his eldest, I think, he and a few of his eldest actually were soldiers underneath Andrew Jackson, I believe. But point is, they get the attention of Andrew Jackson, and Andrew Jackson takes his entire troop of soldiers, and he says, and he's so curious that he plans to go spend a week at the Bell House to see what's going on. So they start traveling over there. All his soldiers, they have horses, they have wagons. But at one point in his travels to the Bell House, suddenly one of the wagons stops moving forward. And no matter how hard the soldiers try or the horses try, they can't get it to move. And this is also some conflicting information. One source says that Andrew Jackson called out to the entity, asking if it was the entity causing this, and that got stopped. And another source said that One of his soldiers was bragging about being a witch hunter and having a silver bullet, and it wasn't until Andrew Jackson apologized for the behavior of the soldier that they were able to continue moving forward. So conflicting information with that. Uh, Eventually, though, they get past that obstacle, they continue on, and they make it to the house. Andrew Jackson's in the house talking to the Bell family, hearing about everything that's been going on, and one thing claims that the soldier that was bragging in the house about the silver bullets, and as he's bragging, he starts getting beat by an invisible force.
What?
He's being thrown around, and at one point, he is actually tossed out of the house. And then they hear a woman's voice. They don't see who it is, but they hear a woman's voice saying that there is another among them that is a liar, claiming to be a witch hunter as well, and she will do the exact same thing to him.
Ugh. Oh my god.
The men, the soldiers tried to convince Andrew Jackson to let them leave, that they all should go. Andrew Jackson refuses. And this is, again, another source of conflicting information because some things were saying that they only managed a single night. Lucas remembers hearing that Andrew Jackson didn't even last a single night. He wanted out. But Andrew Jackson said, quote, "I would rather face the entire British army than to spend another night at that house."
Oh my gosh.
That's how bad it was.
I gotta go.
So Andrew Jackson, you can actually go tour the house and the Bell Witch Cave, which
Nice.
unfortunately I didn't find about the cave and its connection to everything. But anyway, Andrew Jackson and his men leave, and then things just continue getting worse. They keep hearing a woman singing. They keep having these physical attacks. And at one point, the youngest Betsy becomes engaged to a gentleman. His last name being Gardner. I can't remember his first name. But when she becomes engaged, and again, conflicting information. One thing says that she saw an apparition in the woods, and the apparition told her that she does not want Betsy to marry this man, and Betsy immediately breaks it off. Another version says that Betsy and this man Gardner were engaged for a while. The entity did not like it, and the entity did everything to make sure they kept apart. And no matter how hard Betsy and the guy tried to remain together, because of everything that was going on, they eventually had to break it off. And that's one thing I found sort of comical, because everything's like, we have no idea why the entity wouldn't want them together. And I'm just over here like, if it's a negative entity, it probably doesn't want her to be happy. So I'm going to guess that.
Idiots.
Right? Because I'm just over here like, but they're like, why doesn't it want her to marry him? And I'm just like, well, considering it slapped her so hard it gave her welts. Maybe it just wants her to find a better dad. That's totally it. If they just want her to find a better crackers. Anyway. Now here's where we get to the death. Don Bell eventually dies, and when he dies, one of his sons finds in a cabinet a bottle of clear liquid, and they hear a woman's voice. Again, they don't see who's talking. It's the entity. They hear a woman's voice say and brag about how she gave that liquid to Don Bell, and she accomplished what she always wanted, was for Don Bell to die.
What?
And when they had a funeral for Don Bell, at the funeral, all the friends and family there to pay respects. There was a woman, again, a voice. They could not find who was talking, but a voice of a woman just singing and dancing and singing all these bar songs and happy about how he's dead and whatnot. And this voice would not stop until every last person left the funeral.
Oh my gosh.
And then this entity had visited Don Bell's wife. And this is where it gets weird. Well, I mean, it was all already weird, but it gets weirder because apparently this entity visited his wife, said that she would visit the wife in 7 years again, which she did, and then after that she said that in over 100 years she will visit the latest descendant of Don Bell. And I couldn't find anything on how that visit went, but it's a thing where apparently this entity is still haunting the Bell family to this day.
Wow.
And here's even more interesting things. So you remember how I said Kate Batts was into some really suspect behavior, potentially witchcraft?
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently, in the early days of this entity, the entity when they asked what the entity's name was, the entity said her name was Kate. And on top of that, apparently Kate Batts was related to Don Bell's wife.
Whoa.
And the only person the entity would not negatively harm was Don Bell's wife.
Holy shit.
So there's a lot of people who wonder if his wife was in on it, or because Kate Batts was related to her that she made sure that her sister was not harmed in it as well, and only Don Bell and the rest.
Holy shit.
And even more batshit crazy stuff. Lucas said, because he was telling me about the tour of the cave, and he said they had to implement a rule that no one can take anything from the tour because one guy had taken a rock from the cave home, and when he got home, within the next 3 days, he lost his job, he lost his wife, and he lost, I think, his dog or something.
Fuck, man. What the hell? That's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, not the wife, the dog. That's horrible.
He pretty much lost everything within the 3 days after that tour. He lost everything.
We know what has occurred to me
Yes.
through all these stories so far. I think we need to break away from fighting the void. No offense, Ginger. And I think we need to start our own. And what we need to do, because we're both obviously so into this, I think we need to start a Patreon or some kind of GoFundMe situation. And we need to actually get together and actually go investigate some of these places in person, post videos, post fucking pictures, and go all out. That should be our thing.
That'd be interesting.
That would be fucking hilarious. Because I would be the skeptic and you would be screaming in terror. I'm just saying.
Accurate. I mean, that's pretty accurate. When,
I know.
I mean, as a little aside, prior to the episode, Lix and I were talking about the elevator game, and he and I are both pretty sure that it's fake. And Lucas was like, "Okay, we know it's fake. Why don't we go take Red and we go test it out?" And I'm like,
I'll do it.
And me knowing it's fake, I'm still like, "What? No, why?"
Because it's fun. Don't
And
be a chicken shit. Come on.
He even asked me, like, if you know it's fake, then why not do it? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to test. What if it is? I'm not going to do it.
Oh my gosh.
But
see?
Yeah. But But that's the Bell Witch, at least that I know of it. So pretty crazy shit. I have to look further into it. There's a lot of mixed information. A lot of it is possible because part of my research was also that during the time of all this happening, there was a lot of things that weren't written down. So a lot of this is by word of mouth.
Right.
However, with how people have experienced the land going there today, I think there is some weird shit going on with the property. At the very least, there's something weird going on with the property.
Probably.
Yeah, so your turn.
Oh, okay. All right. So this one is also one I would really love to visit because one, it's a cemetery, and two, that it is fucking fascinating as shit. Of course, I would not just, I feel like I really need to say this. I would not bring my kids to this one because it seems like you would have to go at nighttime. And I would not want to traumatize my children. By the way, I will be without kids and without a husband tomorrow night. So I might actually see how far away this is from me and go tomorrow night.
Oh boy.
Yes. All right. So this one is called Wildwood Cemetery and it's in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Supposedly, there is a good side and a bad side of the cemetery. And supposedly it's right smack dab through the middle. And you can only notice the good and bad at nighttime.
Huh.
Yeah. On the good side, supposedly there are fairies, Krystle. Supposedly on the good side, there are fairies that you can see at night. On the bad side, there are hellish creatures, supposedly, that you will see. There is a there is a screaming banshee who will not stop wailing until you leave the cemetery. Much like a certain feminist I know on Twitter who will not stop wailing until you leave her timeline when you say things she doesn't like. Samesies. Some have reported hearing voices and banging coming from the tombs that were
Oh
sealed a
my
long ass time ago. Yeah. There's actually a statue that people claim cries and changes positions
god.
at
Oh my
night.
god.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's
this is my favorite. This is my favorite part right here. There is a large mausoleum that was supposedly designed by a firefighter. Okay. He
Mm-hmm.
had a fear of being buried alive. So
Okay.
what he did was he made this mausoleum where you could open it from the inside, but you couldn't open it from the outside. And what locals claim is that they see the door of this mausoleum opening and closing, which they believe means the firefighter who has since been deceased because he was scared of being buried alive opens the door and essentially haunts the cemetery at night, coming and going as ever he sees fit, which I think is, oh yeah. So this one supposedly has a bunch of weird shit that happens at night. Like I said before, you're supposed to hear knocking, voices, but you can't see anybody. And my main thing is that statue. I want to see if it fucking moves, and I want to have some banshee fucking screaming, trying to get me to leave. And I'm like, no, fuck you. And that's why we need a GoFundMe, because I really want you there to video it when it's screaming at us. So yeah, that's that one. I think that cemetery would be relatively fun. And like I said before, I didn't want to get too in depth with these things because what I was hoping to do is to make people so curious about these things that they'll actually go and research them on their own. Because I want to give just enough that you're like, oh shit, but not enough where you're like, well, I don't need to look it up anymore. So yeah, that's that one. Like, that's it.
Well,
would you go with me?
Yeah.
If we got the money, would you go? You would?
Yeah. So
Yes.
I hate to be that guy, but I do have to poke a hole in the banshee aspect of it.
Ugh.
Only because the folklore with banshees is that they let out a cry when someone's going to die. They don't just let out cries for no reason or to just
Okay.
scare
All
people.
right. So let me pose one thing to you then.
All right.
You're in a cemetery.
Yeah.
It deals with death.
No.
Maybe that's why she's yelling all the time. No, I know what you're saying, Krystle. They don't scream unless someone's going to die. But what I'm saying is everyone in there is dead. Maybe she's fucking confused. Maybe she's confused.
They only scream if someone new's gonna die.
Let me have this. Let me have this. Maybe she's confused.
Fine. But
Thank you.
I should say this oddly enough reminds me of a stretch of forest in Portland because we had passed through a forest, and that also has a little bit of belief surrounding it as well, that one side is good and the other side is bad. But I think in that case, both deal with the Fae. Like one side is supposedly like the Seelie or the good Fae, which the Seelie are supposed to bring life and brightness and whatnot, and the other side is the unseelie Fae, which is more accustomed to or akin to, like death and whatnot.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that really has my interest peaked that there's another thing like that.
You're going to like my last one, but I'm too away from that. So you might want to go.
Okay. Well, my last one, at least as far as I know, unless my memory jogged.
Oh my gosh, if this is your last one, then I have to do 2 back to back. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, but I can always think of another one if you want.
Okay. Yep. It don't matter.
So
I'm good either way.
Men in Black. It was all coming down to this with all the other urban legends. The Men in Black supposedly have been going on since before the Roswell incident, but it really kicked up attention after the Roswell incident, which I'm sure everyone here knows what the Roswell incident is or was. But the Roswell incident, anyway, for explanation purposes, it is basically the first, as far as we know, UFO crash, uh, and supposedly the first encounter with aliens. Um, but at the time, and there we even talk about anyway now about how during all that there were a lot of people who were forced into silence. They were threatened into silence, forced not to talk about it. A lot of people who had information suddenly disappeared or stopped talking. But a lot of it is tied to the Men in Black. And the Men in Black have a lot of explanations around them. Some of them, some people say they are just, they basically act like FBI agents, except, more deep state, more like, more secretive. So others think that they are extraterrestrials themselves, because one person claimed that when he encountered a man in black, he, was very. This is the general description about a man in black: tall, black suit, bald, quite similar facial structures, black glasses. They ask the most basic of questions, and they're neither satisfied or dissatisfied with what you tell them. They are emotionless. They just get what they want and go. Um, and one person claimed that when he encountered a man in black, um, that he didn't move at all from his straight standing up posture. until at one point he wipes his mouth with the back of his hand, which ends up smearing red across his face, and he realizes that the man was wearing lipstick and that his mouth was actually just a completely flat line, and that's all his mouth was.
What the fuck?
And and this man in black also knew he had a copper coin in his pocket, and suddenly the man in black ended the conversation claiming that he was tired, and as he is walked out, he is leaning over on the stair railing of the front porch as if he is drunk. And his speech also slowed down considerably when he said he was tired.
Huh.
And I forgot to say, at the beginning of this encounter, he had received a mysterious call, someone asking him to meet. Once he hangs up, the man is out on his front doorstep. A man he had never met before. So
Shit.
that is one encounter claiming that they're extraterrestrials. And I actually have security footage for you.
Oh, you didn't tell me this. I'm so excited.
This isn't the pure original footage, I don't believe. I couldn't find that.
Okay.
So let me pull it up. And the audio doesn't really, but this is the footage. Let me see where I'll find. So people that work here, all the witnesses corroborate the same thing. These two men in black suits just coming in, acting weird, emotionless. They looked alike. And this is here where they enter on the left side of the footage. Same height, same dress, exactly the same.
That's Will Smith.
So that's the security footage. Now, there is question about the validity of this security footage because skeptics argue that this footage was released at the same time the third Men in Black movie was coming out. So a lot of people suspect that this is basically promo bait.
It's possible. I'd go with that.
However, others that believe that these are the real Men in Black argue that this is security footage originally recorded in 2013, or not 2013. Basically many years before the third Men in Black movie. This was originally recorded.
It doesn't matter. They're just guys in suits.
Yeah.
That's how I view it.
So this specific piece is a bit sketch, but you know.
Well, I mean, if you look at it this way, men wear suits.
Yeah.
A lot of times men wear black suits. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are men. I mean, if you want to get technical, they're men in black because they're wearing black suits. But I mean, you could take footage from pretty much anywhere and claim that it's Men in Black.
Yeah. My personal belief is that the Men in Black really are just the deep state, or the quote deep state. And these stories of them being extraterrestrial or being something beyond human, my personal belief is that is people exaggerating a bit, but not necessarily on purpose. I think it is possible that it just is such a strange thing, and people's minds are so hyped up about the whole Men in Black concept as it is that when they actually encounter one, that their mind just kind of heightens everything.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
As Hunter says in the chat, beds in suits. Oh,
See?
there is one interesting encounter though that I remember. I don't know exactly what video I heard this encounter from, but one encounter was of this guy and his friends out in the woods hanging out in the cabin. And he says that they were hearing weird animal noises outside and they would investigate. And at one point, these men in black approached them asking them strange questions and whatnot. And at one point, there was this weird gas thrown into the cabin. And a lot of their memory was essentially wiped. Like, obviously, enough of it came back, and they remembered enough that this weird encounter happened, but they had gas thrown into their cabin, and their memory was essentially blurred, or however you want to describe it, and they were knocked out. So there's that as well.
Yeah, but I mean that could just be bullshit.
That could be, yeah.
I mean, people lie, especially if they're going to go into some kind of story like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
I would love to believe that it's real, but it's just there's so many.
I'm more so just curious about it, but I don't know if I necessarily believe in that specific encounter. But I'd be curious to re-listen to it. So your turn.
Sorry, I muted my mic there for a minute.
Oh, you're fine. But it is your turn if you are ready to go. And I do have one before your last one, so.
Okay, so I guess we'll talk on Albatwitch. This happened. It supposedly has been seen in Columbia, Pennsylvania, which is specifically in the area of Chickies Rock. Basically, what this is Bigfoot's little brother. It is supposedly a 4-foot tall creature that's said to live in this area along the Susquehanna River. Through the years, these creatures were said to have been spotted in and around the river's shore. They were named after, yes, that's it. They were named after their supposed habit of stealing apples. Habitwitch is short for apple snitch. Legends speak of how they would steal apples from people who were having picnics in the area, and they would actually throw them at people that were there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They're said to spend most of their time in trees and only come down for food. Now, interestingly enough, which leads me to believe that this is at the least a possibility that these creatures actually do exist, is there was an earlier tribe of people in the area, Susquehannocks, I guess they were called. They had a belief in an ape-like creature, and they actually, excuse me, through like excavation and those kind of things and looking into the actual area, they have found weapons and shields that actually had these animals and ape-like creatures drawn or etched or whatever method they used back then on their actual shields. So there is somewhat evidence that these creatures might have existed. Now, the thing that gets me is it's possible they were just apes, normal run-of-the-mill fucking monkeys, because like the legend says, they mainly stuck in trees and came down and got food. So this one, at least to me, is a very likely possibility, because in case no one knows, monkeys are fucking real. Okay. So, monkeys are real. So it's possible this one has some credibility. Now, as far as, because like they would say, it would get up to 4 feet tall. I'm not sure how big it is, but it's definitely a possibility that they existed. As far as how big they are, how tall they are, how heavy they are, that's open to speculation. I'm not entirely sure. But the fact that they did a bunch of excavating in that area and found weapons and areas where they had these creatures documented kind of leads me to believe that this is actually a thing. So this one I would lean towards this actually being a thing. I'm not saying it's violent. This creature is actually, violent or anything, but I don't know. I think it could be real.
I think so too. Like if there's actual like found evidence, like you said, I think it's leaning more towards real.
That's what I think too. Like it's possible.
Or at least signs of something like that having been there, if it's not actively still there.
Well, there are people that say that it faded out and went extinct in, I don't know, the 1800s, but then the one guy I worked with who specifically, like I told you before we went on here, that deals with ghost hunting and these kind of things, stated that he did in fact see one of these supposed creatures on his way to work. But then again, he would go to work really early in the morning. So he's probably tired and thought he's seen a fucking monkey. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this one I think could be real. Because it's not really like a supernatural thing. It's more like, okay, monkeys exist. Why couldn't they live here?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
That's all I have on that one. I thought it was fascinating. And they actually have, like I showed you before, or sorry, I told you before, they have, what is it? Festivals and carnivals surrounding this supposed creature. So
yeah,
I've never been to one. And I just found out they were a thing. Might have to fucking go.
I think so.
I think so too.
That's really interesting. Now, for my final one, also ties into the Men in Black. What's this? Hunter says, in the 1840s, a train containing zoo animals crashed and most of the animals were never found. Among them were several orangutans. Coincidence?
I mean, that's possible. But where did they crash, though? That's the thing.
Yeah.
If they crashed in Colombia or at least areas surrounding it, I would consider it, because there's also stories that say that it's also been spotted in Lancaster, which is a 20-minute drive away. So, I mean, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I agree. For my final one, I will be touching on Polybius. There isn't too much on Polybius, but wow, I end up referencing a lot of Portland ones today. But Polybius is a urban legend from Portland, and it is specifically a urban legend among video gamers. So the story of Polybius is that back in the day, there was this weird, mysterious arcade machine. It was black. You know the classic like Pac-Man arcade machines at the game stores and whatnot that you could play, that you would go to the arcade and play. One of those machines, but this was completely black. It was unmarked. It had no name, but it was a game that teens could go play. And teenagers would play this game that they later on named Polybius. And after they would play, they would feel really weird and strange and feel sick. They'd feel nauseous, they would pass out, but the game was also oddly addicting as well, like more so than the other games. And the game would be quote unquote maintenance by these men in black suits who would come in, work on the back of it, never taking any of the coins put in, and then just leave. No other word. And it would,
What?
yeah, and it would just continue on like that. One guy even claims to have been abducted after he played this game and passed out. And he even gives tours of the tunnels that he was taken through, tunnels similar to the Shanghai tunnels. He will tour people through the tunnel routes he was abducted through after playing this mysterious game. A lot of people, the urban legend is that this game was mind control or a government experiment or test of some sort. And just as mysteriously and quickly it appeared, it also quickly and mysteriously disappeared. And that is Polybius.
Sorry, I'm laughing. Like, did you hear what my youngest said?
No?
Okay, good. No, it's okay.
Okay. But there's my last thing, Polybius. There isn't really too much. Oh, one fact about it. The author of Ready Player One, as a teenager, playing at arcades with his friends, heard about this machine, and he didn't play it himself, but he remembers he had heard about it, and that was a source of inspiration for his book, Ready Player One. So there we go.
Is that your last one you said?
Yeah, there wasn't really much to it.
Oh,
Just a really mysterious arcade game, like one or two machines of it, unmarked. It was only maintenance by men in black suits. The coins were never taken. Uh, you always felt sick after playing it, and it was supposedly mind control. And one guy claims to have been abducted after playing this, and he woke up and was found in the middle of the forest.
what the fuck?
Yeah. So that's it.
Okay, well, I have one more. This is the one that I said you'd probably like. It's called Shank's Ferry. I think I told you before, that's the one I had the picture of because I have a Jetta, it was, and I had my kids. If I didn't have my kids, I probably would have tried to go down it. But the beginning of the trail kind of had a huge, huge ass dip in it. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it from that picture. I think you can.
Yeah.
There was a huge ass dip, and it didn't look safe for anything that was not a 4-wheel drive vehicle. So I opted out of going any further. But no, I don't have a Jedi. I have a Jetta, a Volkswagen. Madness. But Donald Cazo, I guess, of the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, he discovered a new group of people actually in that area. Evidence that they collected at this specific site suggests it was used as a hunting camp by Native American groups. As far and like I told you before we went on, you can find foundations in this area, of buildings that used to be there, things that used to be there. But regarding things of the paranormal and legends surrounding this area, there's one specific one I found, referring to a white angel of Shanks Ferry's haunted tunnel.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you want a chance to see her, you're supposed to go to the entrance of said tunnel, park your car in the center, and then you are to turn your car off, put your keys on top of the roof. Then you are to walk around your car 3 times and then get back in the vehicle and wait. Supposedly, if you do this correctly, a woman wearing a white dress is supposedly supposed to appear. She said, like, sometimes she'll be just standing there, other times she'll be hanging from the tunnel's entrance from a rope.
What?
Yeah. So the lore surrounding this specific area, there's a couple of theories and stories that go into it. One of which is this woman was brutally murdered in the tunnel. Some think it was her husband who did it, who killed her. Some think it was the person she loved that died there, and she's somehow trapped in the area mourning that man's death. But the most popular version is a heartbroken bride who hung herself after she was left at the altar.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And now the true story of what actually happened. Apparently in 1974, a woman of about 18 years old was struck and killed by a train.
Oh,
she
man.
was dressed in a white sheet and was wearing moccasin boots, which apparently was a very odd attire to be wearing. Eventually, when they looked into it more, they determined, at least from Penn Central and the state police, they determined she had wandered off from a mental institution. Apparently, there's a lot of that in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
She wandered off from a mental institution in Maryland several days before. So that's the actual story of what happened. And then she was struck by a vehicle, or from a train, sorry. And there's also some theories that when you leave the area, there are theories that some people have experienced handprints around their car and on the windshield, on the windows, that don't match any passengers in the actual car. Oh. And there's also another one that states, if you do the same thing, but you put a water bottle on top of the car, she will supposedly pick the water bottle up and throw it off of your vehicle. I don't know why. She doesn't like water, I guess. I don't know.
That sounds off.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. I'd like to try that one just to see. Like I said, don't have the kids tomorrow. But there's also kind of another one that what was that other one? I'm trying to think. There was another one. Oh yeah, if you have male passengers, apparently they faint.
Huh.
So I guess she's a feminist. I mean, I don't know, but apparently she doesn't like fucking men, and they all faint.
Huh.
I don't know how much of that is true, but apparently it goes back. That area goes back a very long time of people that have lived here. They stated that specific area and that civilization what would you call it? I guess civilization of people that used to live there was there before Christ even existed.
Oh,
so
wow.
a long ass time. So that's pretty much all I have.
That's really interesting, man. I'm always skeptical of those urban legends that deal with a summoning thing, but to give that one credit, it at least uses a number that has supernatural or spiritual meaning, which is 3. So I give it credit for that.
Yeah. I mean, that one I'm not 100% sure on. I mean, but given how long, I mean, at least how far back that specific civilization was there,
Yeah.
I would have to say something. If you believe in supernatural, I'd have to say something has to at
Yeah.
least exist there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and they still say, and like I said, I told you before we even went on, I definitely want to go there because they say there are ruins of that civilization that are still actually there. And
Yeah.
people have still been able to find um, proof of them having existed there, which I think is fascinating. And I would love to check it out.
That is really fascinating. If you go check it out tomorrow, be sure to let me know how it goes.
Oh my gosh. If I check it out tomorrow without the kids and the husband, are you kidding me? I'm going to videotape that shit.
Do it.
I'm going to.
Yes. Well, on that note, that's what we have on U.S. Legends, and I'd say this is a very good episode to our series. Very good first episode to our series. Now we just need to figure out what our next um, subject will be. We can always do in our Twitter poll to decide.
We could definitely do that. And like I said, I am totally on board with starting a Patreon or GoFundMe or something so we can actually research this shit together.
Yeah.
Because, guys, we've never even met in person. That's really sad.
Yeah, that's not fair.
That makes me sad. Crystal's my little sister.
Aw, and Red's my big sister.
That's how that works, Crystal.
Well, I wanted to say it too. But yeah. Well
This was a fun one, I'll be honest.
it was really fun, and I'd love to do more of this. I mean,
Well, we have to.
We're obviously gonna do. I'd love to do more on even U.S. ones. It'd be very fun too. So thank y'all.
Definitely.
Thank y'all for tuning in, and thank you for sharing your own urban legends and your own thoughts on these legends. We look forward to seeing you guys with the next episode. We will be posting a poll either tonight or tomorrow with new options, maybe some repeats from the first poll, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Until then, y'all keep fighting the good